painting a portrait of a powerful mother-daughter dynamics by understanding how two people of the same seed can become so different. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I'm your host, STJ. And today I thought I would designate or assign an episode on how I came to be who I am, Dr. Slava, by shedding some light onto my mother's relationship with life, with the world, and the lenses that she used to see the world and the way she processed the world, and how that affected the way I ran my life, or I built my life that I am living right now. Why is that important? Because for an Arab woman immigrant, coming to the United States and building what I have built, a lot of the questions from my team and from my patients is, how did you do it? How did you end up doing it? So what I wanted to do is to really dive deep into the mental, psychological process that I have been going through in order to get here. And I made a lot of notes, so don't judge me if I'm reading some of the notes that I have made. So by reflecting on how I got here as a dentist, as a business owner, as a franchise owner, or even as a podcast host, I couldn't help myself comparing on how my mom actually valued stability above all things. Above desires, above ambitions, above dreams. So let me just explain one thing. My mom was a very, very cautious, very conservative, highly, highly critical, and very anxious person about the what if. For example, if I tell her I want to go spend the night at my aunt's house, her own sister, because I get to play with my cousins, and then, we get to hang out, and I'm tired and I want to come home, and can I spend the night over there? The answer is no. Then I start questioning, but why? She's your sister, and these kids are your nieces and nephews, so they're family. But she always was terrified about the what if something happens? What if you fall asleep and you get sick and I'm not there, or I'm not there to help you recover? So it's all about the what if. She saw risk everywhere. But we need to understand why she saw risks everywhere, because I believe from all the stories that I heard from her in regards of how she ended up in Saudi Arabia, I think my mom was traumatized by the whole process and by the journey, how she ended up in Saudi Arabia. We need to understand that my parents never had the intentions to come to Saudi Arabia or to live in Saudi Arabia. They ended up in Saudi Arabia by default. My mom doesn't like change if it's not controlled and if it's not minimal change, small steps. Otherwise, she gets really, really anxious, because anxiety, the definition of anxiety is the fear of the unknown. And as long as my mom could keep the unknown as small as possible, she had the confidence that she can actually manage that unknown. So the what if was so scary for her. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if somebody says something? What if you get into a fight with your cousins? Who cares? We're just kids. So what? I used to tell her, so what? She used to be so mad. Don't say so what. It's a very, very important thing to consider, and you need to be cautious and calculating enough to consider the what if. But also on the other side, worrying about the what if so much, it will drive you crazy. It will limit your mindset. It will restrict your chances and your opportunities. So that was my personality when I got to high school. Before high school, I was a yes ma'am. It just blind faith that my mom knew the best. She will always carry out the decisions that is, better for me. And that will be the best decision that she can make for me, for my benefit, for my safety, for my health, for my intellectuality, for my progress, for my success. But when I got to high school, I started questioning the process. And because of my intentions to figure out things my way and kind of pave my own path, that created the clash between her personality and my personality. And being cautious and being conservative and being comprehensive about the plan, or being, critical, judgmental about the plan, that was her way of making sure that you are taking the right decision or the best decision you can take to guarantee that you're going to end up in the right spot. My mom is all about guarantees, and that is the person that doesn't like risks. Minimize the risk to maximize the guaranteed results that you're looking for. My view was, how are you going to learn if you don't make mistakes, if you don't get your hands dirty, get shuffled around, get pushed around to figure out, how am I going to do this? As a parent, I get it. I never had kids, but as a parent, I get it that will tell you, I got life experience. Life experience gives me the upper hand to predict or to know what's best for you. But remember, as the parent is parenting and as they are entering the advanced years, the world is changing. People are changing. Cultures are changing. Tools are changing. Processes are changing. Things are done in a different way from the time they were my age, 20 plus years old, 30 plus years old. So, but that was, her mindset. So me growing up under her, protection, under her guidance, under her supervision, under her mentoring, she saw risk in everything and she saw risk everywhere. So she considered change to a certain point, but not when it felt dangerous. You can take a risk, but if the risk is, it's dangerous, or I'm going to lose everything, or what if it doesn't work? Like I said, it's what if it's that kind of free fall? It was a no. Give you an example. Me coming to the United States, it was a big no-no. Because me coming to the United States risked the fact that I might not come back. Being an American right? Getting my citizenship, to her, that was 100% treachery. I was a traitor. I stripped my nationality. I want to become an American to take advantage of the system and the opportunity. Why? Aren't you proud of who you are? Yes, I am proud of who I are, but it is a necessity for me to establish life in the United States. You should be proud enough to refuse that as a favor. So America is making you an American citizen as a favor so you can get what you want. She was too proud to accept that. I don't want to owe anybody anything. It's like now I owe United States that favor of becoming an American, and that's no good. You're only supposed to owe favors through family, through the tribe, and that's her traditional tribal connection. It felt dangerous to her for me to become an American, for me to come to the United States, for me to settle in the United States, for me to marry an American. That was too dangerous because it was far away. It was unrecognizable thing to do, unfamiliar, thing to do. She didn't understand it. She didn't understand what an American means. She didn't understand the benefit of being an American, or why would you have the interest of becoming an American. And remember, when she did not understand that concept, then it became the unknown. And what's anxiety again? The fear of the unknown. That became very scary for her. The thought of me never coming back or going back home, right? Because then I'm building, if I settle in the United States, if I get married in the United States, if I marry an American, then the chances are I'm never coming back. I'm never going home. And that made her not only scared of losing me to the United States, to an American husband, it was very, very sad. She was saddened by the fact that this might happen and she's losing her first daughter. And we need to understand that in the Arab culture or ancient culture or conservative culture or tribal culture, being the first daughter is a big deal. Yes, it puts a lot of pressure on us as first daughters, but there's a reason for that, and I'm going to get into it. Okay. So I was curious instead of being fearful. And that was the difference between me and my mom. My mom was very fearful, and she fed into the fear to keep everybody together and to keep us afloat and to keep the family in a very cohesive form. But I was curious about life. I was excited to be independent of the tribe, then be dependent on the tribe. Being dependent on the tribe emotionally, and I mentioned that in many, many episodes on our podcast, that one of the things that I miss being in the United States, since I don't have children, so I don't have a lineage that I can actually play upon for support, for care, for an emergency. It's important to have that family dependence. I wish I had cousins or aunts or uncles around. Everybody's in Jordan or scattered. I think I have a cousin in Texas or Arizona. I have another cousin in Canada, but the majority are in Jordan, and I have my immediate cousins, my mom's sister in Saudi Arabia. So you can say through the internet and FaceTime and social media, you can connect, a lot easier, but it's not the same. It's not the same. You guys need to understand the nature of the traditional tribal connection in the Arab world or in our culture to really realize how much we miss by being here in the United States without that support. So I was a risk taker instead of a risk avoider. My mom avoided the risk. Like I said, taking a risk to a certain point, it was okay. But when you're taking a risk such as leaving everything you know and everybody that you love and coming to the United States, not knowing whether it's going to work, there's no guarantee. There's nothing guaranteed about life. So that was scary. That was dangerous. So I was anxious at the same time to leave the nest. But, instead of being too nervous, trying to stay in the nest, and no matter what, because my mom always said that, stay put, status quo. Don't change anything. I'll let you know. I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to let you know that when to take the next step. I'm going to let you know when to advance. It's really like military. But what that does, it really limits your mindset. And at the same time, you are wondering how many opportunities and chances that I'm missing out on, by just waiting and waiting. So I was anxious to leave the nest, but instead of being nervous trying to stay in it, no matter what, I was eager to learn why I can't leave and why I need to stay by constantly questioning the concept or questioning the belief system that she was constantly exercising. And if she's not exercising it, she was practicing it with us. So when I start asking the why question, that just threw a red flag in her mind that something is weird going on. This never happened before. Slava start asking the why. She's questioning the process. She's questioning the system, the belief system. She did not expect that. Not from a daughter, maybe from a son, but not from a daughter and not from the first daughter. So when I start questioning the rules, my imagination went wild. What if I could do this? What if I could do that? And I start dreaming or daydreaming about how my life would be or could be if I leave the nest, if I leave Saudi Arabia. Not even Jordan. I mean, for me going to Jordan, it was like, it was a lateral move going from Saudi to Jordan. It's kind of the same thing, but it's not a little bit more open, but it would just, the family is going to ask me to abide by all the family ties and obligation, and I'm supposed to oblige and say yes to everybody instead of having only my mom trying to reason with her. I'm going to have a whole tribe trying to reason with, and I did not want to do that. So my wild imagination, by daydreaming of what my life could be, that gave me a sense of the opportunities, the options. Like, oh my God, I felt like my mind was going into like this really high-end store shopping for an outfit. And it's like, oh my God, look at these options. Look at the combination of things that I could do. And the unlimited, like I said, the unlimited opportunities. And I thought to myself, why would I not go for it? Why would I limit myself? Yeah, there were questions in my mind that what if I fail? What if things don't work out? Then I'll just come back. But the psychology behind my family system, which is influenced by, I think, trauma, immigration experiences, and anxiety-driven parenting. So let me give you just a background of the reason why my parents left Jordan. In the early 1960s, there is the Ba'ath Party that started, I think, in Iraq and Syria, and they were going around on campuses, not recruiting, but like chanting and bringing awareness of the socialist system, medical social system, economic, financial social system, and the young, of course, professionals that graduating from college, it was like, yeah, power to the people and all that. And then they, my dad was in Egypt, which was completely sponsored, supported by Nasser, and then you have Lebanon, where my mom was, the American University in Beirut. Then they came to Jordan. They came back to the monarchy. The monarchy is like, time out. You cannot have socialized system right here. So either mute that, shut it, or get out, basically. So my dad, being the atheist that he was, may he rest in peace, and being, the nephew of Slimane Nabilsi, who was the head of the Socialist Party in the Jordanian parliament, he was very passionate about it. It was a dream. A lot of the young people dream, most of the young people population dream is to give the power back to the people. So my understanding, according to my dad's story, is one of his best friend was the head of the intelligence, and I guess he arrested his cousin because they were chanting and they have demonstrations in the streets and stuff like that. And he heard my dad being very vocal about his support to the Socialist Party, and he said, "Hey, you can't keep doing that. I know you guys are very well connected. I just arrested your cousin, but I let go of him because of your connection." Everybody pulled, connections and ties, and we let him go with no charges, but I can't do this again. So my dad's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And he said, I'll get you a contract in Saudi Arabia, 5-year contract. Just live there for a while and then let things just cool down or cool off, and then you can come back. The rest was history, because we were there for about 19 years. I was born and raised there, me and my siblings. But when I say that there is a hint of trauma to the immigration, because when you are forced to displace yourself from your home world, and we talk a lot about this on the show, because of your methodology, your ideology, your belief system, that is traumatizing to you, whether you like it or not, whether you feel it right away or you don't, or you feel it later in life. It will resonate through what you do in life and how you look at life. So the trauma, the immigration experience, the anxiety driven parenting, that did exist. I believe that. No, back then, don't ask me when I was in high school, I have no idea what I was talking about. I would never think that way. But now, as an adult, being in as a healthcare provider for 28 years, I understand trauma. I recognize it. I can call it, and I mental health too, because I've seen thousands and thousands of patients through the years, and I've heard many stories that will, not prove, but it has a proof that mental health does exist, and trauma, whether the experience causing traumatic feelings or traumatic impact on us, how we view life post-trauma or post that experience. I hope that makes sense. So my mom, I believe, again, by reading, by studying psychology, by researching it, I believe that she often disguised fear as love towards us. And that's how she explained her concerns. And also that's how she explained herself, why she would tell us to do certain things in a certain way. So things that would say, just like any parents, I want what's best for you. I want to protect you. I don't want you to make the same mistakes. I want you to be better than me. I want you to have a better life. So constantly disguising fear of being like her, not being protected, right? Fearing of having the same life that she has. Obviously, she was not satisfied with that life, and she was not convinced that was a good life for her, or she could have or should have done better by saying, I want you to have a better life. So by disguising fear as, because I love you, I don't want you to make the same mistakes. I want you to have a better life. That was enough excuse. Please don't leave. Please don't leave the nest. Please don't allow your wings to get bigger or grow, that you won't be able to contain them in this nest, and you have to spread your wings. And the moment you're going to open those wings, just the air will going to flow underneath them, and you're going to have to take off. You won't be able to hold yourself back. That was her fear, that it's going to happen, that I won't be able to hold back. Nature is going to take its course, and it's going to fly me right out of there. So, but I don't think she analyzed how much of her fear was of the unknown. So she always thought that by saying these things, that she will convince us that, oh my God, I would never betray this love. Oh my God, I would never reject this love. Oh my God, I would not underappreciate this love. And she thought that's going to work, but I don't think that she realized how much of her fear of the unknown turned into a controlled parenting style. So it was a tool to control the narrative by saying these things. Make us feel like, oh my gosh, she cares, like she wants better for us, which she did. But she did it in a way that wasn't sustainable, because later in life, one at a time, we all left the nest. And we left the nest, some of us later in life, and that was traumatic, too traumatic, that it took us a lot longer to achieve what we wanted to achieve. So she often projected her fears and her feelings of disappointment and failure in her parenting ways. She used to tell me all the time about the stories of, distant cousin or distant uncle or distant relative, and how they did not listen to the family, how they went up, played upon their own ambitions and their own selfish interest, and they failed, and they end up coming back, regretting everything they have done, and they wish they stayed home. And it's constantly those stories, trying to reflect on the past. And I'm really good with stories, because I don't forget stories. That's how I learn. I'm very visual. And I don't remember her sharing with me a successful story. It's always about regret. It's all about failure. It's all about fear. But that's what she did. She projected her fears and her feelings of disappointment and failure in parenting. She thought that was a parenting style, that I need to scare them enough that Slava is not going to leave. And when I tried to go against her mindset or even question the status quo, she became very resentful. She became very critical, very judgmental. And she fed me that guilt, right? And she forced and she plugged guilt into every single conversation and every single debate and every single discussion. Because her generation, survival mattered more than self-elevation or evolution or just leaving everything behind and just being a pioneer and doing your own thing, right? Neither self-growth or self-expression, it was not as important as staying within the family, because they had a different belief system, right? They had different survival methods. We need to survive, not thrive, just survive. If we can survive, and she used to tell me beggars can't be choosers, right? Because if they were second-class citizens in Saudi Arabia, just keep your head down and just take whatever they give you and make something out of it. But don't ask for more, right? So that's all it's giving to you, then you make the best of it. Because you just have to survive. It mattered more than self-elevation, self-growth, or even self-expression. And that was the classical traditional mindset of her generation. Add on top of that, the trauma from her immigration journey, or the process of her immigration, leaving everything behind. And in the 60s, going from Jordan to Saudi Arabia, that was a culture shock. Do not think of Saudi Arabia as you guys see right now on social media. None of that existed. None of that existed when I was there in the 80s. Can you imagine going from somebody who is pre-med, my mom was pre-med, full scholarship from the Jordanian government into the American University in Beirut. My mom never seen cereal in her life. The first time she ate cereal was in the common room in the AUB, American University in Beirut. Freshly squeezed orange juice served right there, right, with cereal. She used to tell me those things. It was Frosted Flakes or Kellogg's cornflakes. That was the first time she ever even got introduced to the concept of a cereal or oatmeal, So that was the American way. So go from there, having the plan. She was supposed to go on to medical school, full ride, by the Jordanian government to Canada. She went back to Jordan because her mom passed away the summer that she graduated. And then that same summer, she met my dad. And the plans were thrown out the window. But she was supposed to be an MD. So that's traumatizing because life circumstances, number one. Number two, because of her mindset and her belief system, right? Surviving trumps self-elevation, self-growth, and self-expression. Whether she shared it with us, but I'm sure it was traumatizing to her as she became a parent, as she became like my mentor as a woman, a mom, and how is she going to lead me through life? Like how she looked at life in a different lens. So because when you experience hardship at early adulthood age, you learn to prioritize safety over growth. I believe that. And I believe that's what my mom was 100% about, being safe, low the risk, because too risky means too dangerous. That's not safe. Okay. So safety over growth. Do I rather be safe, or I rather take a dangerous risk and threaten my survival, my livelihood? Okay. So basically, to put it in layman terms, is clip the wings, stay in the nest where I can protect you. It's lower risk than diving into the unknown. So that was her 100%. And she would have clipped my wings and kept me in and allowed me just to take smaller steps, right? Short distance steps. Just don't go too far. You always need to come back. Okay? You can go up to that point, but be very, very careful. And I want you to come back safe. That was my mom constantly, like small steps. Small steps is very limiting mindset in my eyes. If I was a different personality, it would have probably been okay. But in my mind, that was too lame. That wasn't enough. I want to go the whole way. What if there's more? What if there's more? What if? So her what if it's dangerous? What if it's risky? What if it means it's failure? What if it's like, oh my God, you're going to get hurt? What if I lose you? For me, it's like, what if there's amazing things? See the difference in the way and in the mindset. And that was the constant struggle, that she rather clip my wings and keep me in the nest than to have me risk and dive into the unknown. At one time, I was so frustrated that I just felt suffocating. And I said to her that you need to realize, because every time I ask the why, question the status quo, question like why, I can always come back. I'm not going to do that. You know me. I'm your daughter. I told her that you need to understand that you can't live forever. You're not going to live forever. I'm not going to live forever. But if you're thinking that you need to protect me as much as you can, as long as you can, to keep me safe, hoping that before you exit this world, I'll be trained enough or well taken care enough that I can stand on my own. But you just said I can't leave the nest. So if you clip my wings, how am I going to fly after you're not around? So you can't live forever. She was very, very upset. And how am I going to survive when you're gone if you keep protecting me and enabling me not to do and not to learn and not to experience? And that's how you pick up. That's how you learn. You learn from mistakes. I need to make mistakes in order for me to gain the tools that will help me not only survive, but thrive. Thriving, like I said, it wasn't a question. Surviving was a priority. Let's just survive. And we can worry about thriving later. Let's just survive. And we can worry about you experience things later. Let's just survive. And then you can start being creative and express yourself. Survival mode only. It wasn't pretty. I remember the day. I was in sophomore high school. It was, it ended very ugly, to be very honest. She cried, she yelled. And I think that's when she realized that she was losing her grip over my wings. She couldn't clip them, but she was really tightening, bounding them. Putting them in a bound, and every time the bound got really tight, I kind of like shook them loose, and I wanted to fly out. And I created this world in my mind that, like I said, imagining what my life would be. And I would slowly introduce the ideas like, Mom, I want to do this. No, you're fine. Mom, I want to, end up going that. No, you're fine. But I'm not fine. I want to do stuff. So she felt like she was slipping, losing the grip over my wings, or losing control over my wings, and they were getting too big to bound, because you can always restrict as much as possible, and then when the ambitions and your dream gets bigger and bigger, it's almost that powerful energy that you're just oozing. That energy is just, you're going to trap that energy in a very, very small bottle, and that bottle is going to burst. And I believe, although my siblings disagree with me, I think that's when she went into, a menopausal depression, because during that time she was very menopausal. My mom went through horrific menopause, I believe. Now, going through menopause, and now I'm postmenopausal, things were very, very familiar. And it's like, oh my God, that's what my mom used to say. Oh my God, that's how my mom felt. Oh my God, that's what my mom used to look like or used to complain from. And I went through menopause for 12 years. So, and without kids. I can't imagine having 5 kids trying to leave the nest. I'll be like, I would probably go through depression and have panic attack. I think, and her health suffered because she was trying to regulate her diabetes. She was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes after number 5 was born, and her blood pressure was through the roof. And my mom hated doctors, and she believed in naturopath, functional medicine. She tried to medicate herself with natural thing, like swallowing a clove of garlic every single morning with a shot of lemonade to bring down her blood pressure. And that did not work because diabetes runs in her family, and she was diagnosed type 2 diabetes when she ended up here in the United States. And she neglected that because she was mentally, emotionally, spiritually too busy trying to make sense of what's going on with her children, especially me as a first daughter. The Princess Royal, basically, the crown princess. You always try to, train your first daughter to be the role model, the not perfect, perfectionism is a disorder, but to be as wise, practical, able, educated, being equipped with as many tools in life as possible to help others, to help members of family, because as a mom that, she's going to take over. She's going to be the matriarch of the family at some point. So it's your duty to prep her to take that line of succession in that tribe. And so I couldn't bear seeing her, of course, like that. And she used to go through like temper tantrums and just complete collapse, sitting on the floor, crying and sobbing, and nobody loves me. And with her blood pressure, that was very scary. I feel guilty. And that guilt really settled in. So I started to hide my dreams because I figured that what are my options, right? Here I am in Saudi Arabia, very, very conservative, a country, very traditional country. And my mom played upon that because it just reinforced the traditional tribal or connection, the conservative, personality. So I start hiding my dreams, and I stopped showing my interest to avoid, her, aggravation. And in every time I try to ease my way through gently, it's like, Mom, I'm gonna graduate from high school. I am looking at college options. I want to go to dental school, maybe United States. Her judgmental eyes were piercing. Her critical voice was just like sharp as a knife, just cut right through me. And her disappointing body language, it really killed me. And I couldn't bear it anymore. So I used to confide in my aunt, my cousins, just to kind of vent out. That's when I started spending a lot of time in my aunt's house just to escape that, because I couldn't confront her. I couldn't face her because and I almost like, why couldn't you be happy for me that I want to leave the nest? And like I said, being a first daughter is a big, big deal in our culture. You are the big sister. You're going to be the mother, the matriarch of the family at some point, the heir to the throne. And the struggle started as a emotional conflict between me and her. So I loved her so much because she's my mom, and I respected her, and I admired her, and I sympathized with her, and I wanted to make her happy. But also at the same time, I was rejecting her views, and that conflict between loving her and rejecting, like, how can you love somebody because of like their biological connection to you, blood, but also reject so much the views and the belief system that was applied to me. But that conflict grew as I got older. Sophomore, junior, senior year got really, really, really tense, to the point that I wasn't very close to my dad. I'm very much my dad's daughter, built, look, mindset, belief system, but we did not get along. I think because we're so similar, we butt head a lot, and we just, crashed. There was no room for both of us in the same space. So, but like I said, my dad was a feminist. He just like, you can do whatever you want. Of course, you're going to have options. Go for it. He was my biggest advocate and my cheerleader. And my mom did not like that. It's like, don't make my life harder. I'm trying to keep her in place. I'm trying to protect her, and you making it harder, stop interfering. But when I was desperate, I went to my dad's like, Dad, please. I mean, I get it, but please let me go. The conflict got louder and more intense. My siblings can feel it, hear it, live it. They understood it. They got it, but it was my mom. Like they couldn't bear disappoint her or go against her wish, because also she was showing physical signs of distress, blood pressure, diabetes, agitation, going through menopause and all that. But I didn't realize that at that time it was a price to pay for my independence. Not freedom, but just independence, because you are never, ever in our culture will be free from your tribal connections. It runs through your veins, right? That you can never get rid of it. Even though you can dress it up differently, you can numb it, you can avoid it, you can distract yourself from it. It's in your blood. It runs through your veins. These roots are too deep to be just ripped out and say, I don't care. It does not work that way. I know so many people that immigrants, Arab, Jordanian, Palestinian, Syrian, Egyptian, Iraqi, you name it, Pakistani, from that culture, India, Portuguese, even the Portuguese culture is very traditional, Greek, Albanian, Russian. It's in your blood. So on a cellular level, you are always going to be part of that tribe. And going against the tribal wish, going against the mindset, going against a belief system, you're always going to have the guilt. You're going to have the feel of betrayal. You're going to have the feel of letting go, or the feel of even being a traitor. This is treachery. Those are my ancestors, and they put the system together in order to protect us, and that's why we're here. If my ancestors did not insist on these belief systems and these values, I won't be here. I won't have a tribe. I won't have a family. So I didn't realize in the beginning when the conflict started. And then as the conflict continued between me and my mom, I just said that I'm going to have to pay a price for my independence. Because like I said, the freedom from that, you cannot just rip your roots. That's, you can try. And I know a lot of people that tried, but it did not end up pretty. So the more she exercised her scarcity thinking, the more I wanted to seek independence and abundance of whatever life is going to give me. I want to take advantage of the opportunity and the options. So let me finish this episode. I don't want it to get long with the story that 1988, I just got accepted at Case Western Reserve, Cleveland, Ohio. I had my bags packed, ready to go. Finally got the approval and the blessing, and my mom, the acceptance that I'm going, and my cousins were going with me. My brother was going with me. We're all total 3 young, courageous chaps that, leaving the nest and going to Cleveland. So that was okay. I'm taking part of my tribe with me. That was fine. And it was August of 1988, and I was leaving home. Finally, successfully, I got the approval and the consent, and starting, new chapter. And for my credit, I did try the schools in Saudi Arabia. I spent a year in King Saud University, and I did, I think, semester and a half in King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah. So I tried. It's not like I didn't try. It's like, okay, I'm done. I got proof, I got data. And then I was finishing dinner. My mom's sister was with me and sitting with my mom. And then it got so quiet and they both were looking at me so weird. I'm like, what's up? And I said, well, we need to talk to you about something. I was like, what's going on? I had that lump in my throat that something's going on. They're gonna try anything and everything to kind of like intercept or disrupt or just ruin this whole plan. I'm almost there, but I'm not there yet. Said, well, we've been reviewing and discussing and negotiating your marriage. I'm like, excuse me? They said, yeah, marriage for the past 6 months. To whom? Well, so-and-so family, Procter & Gamble, and they own Procter & Gamble in Saudi Arabia. His youngest son just graduating. He just finished his master's from Arizona University and he's ready to get married. I'm like, but I'm not ready to get married. I want to go to the States to get my degree. Well, it's okay. It's a process. You guys get to do the courting phase and the engagement phase. And by the time you finish undergrad, it will be time to get married. And I said, but I want to go to dental school. I want to finish, my education. And it's like, oh, that's okay. But you don't have to decide right now. You're coming home in December for Christmas and you can give us your answer. I'm like, no. I looked at my mom. I was like, what were you thinking? No wonder we've been trying to keep me here, because that's another reason, because there is the prospect of marriage and even keeping me and your grandchildren close by in the nest. So I was so upset. I looked at it and I said, what if I land in Cleveland, Ohio, and after 3 months crossing the street and meet my future husband? She lost her mind. How could you say that? How could you wish that on us? Bite your tongue. She was so mad. I thought she's going to have a stroke because her face got so red and she was furious. She did not expect that answer. She expected me to be obedient and said, yes, mother, I will consider it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much for all your effort trying to secure my marital life, but I'm going to Cleveland, Ohio. She didn't expect that. I was so upset and disappointed that I blurbed that thing out of my mouth. It is realistic. It is true and very, very progressive way of a very logical way to approach something like that, but it was not the right time, nor the right place. I should have said that in December. After I come back from college, maybe have her cool off or have things cool off. But she didn't like that. Luckily, her sister was there and she calmed things down. And I just stormed out and I said, I don't want to talk about this. This is ridiculous. This is what I said before. I remember before leaving the kitchen, because we were sitting in the kitchen, I have my freaking bags packed and you guys talking to me about an arranged marriage. No, the answer is no for now. It's like, don't you come back, young lady? And I'm like, I'm done. But I thought I'll end this episode with this story because I guess I was on a mission to prove to her that there is another way of living my life that was possible. And I was kind of climbing up towards that new life. But she was very, very limited. And that was the part that right now, back then I didn't think about it that way, but right now I think it was really unfair. But that was her style of putting pressure on me. She always wanted me to choose here or there, us or them, now or never, yes or no, black and white. And I am very, colorful person, as you can see. I try to make her understand that I choose the rainbow, where I can pick the color that I thought that will serve me well at particular time of my life. This time in my life when I left Saudi Arabia, it was purple, because I just it was bluish, it was bruised, it was a lot of emotions, I was carrying a lot of baggage, it was a lot of conflict, lot of confrontation, a lot of bruising, right? And then when I got to Cleveland, Ohio, it was dark. It was dark navy blue because of the winter, missing home and all. So I name emotions as I see them, and I pick the colors that will express where I am in my life. So she wanted black and white, yes or no? And I couldn't give her that. And that was very disappointing as far as she was concerned. We have reached the end of our hour. As a reminder, these episodes are uploaded weekly on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube channel by the Mindset Mastery Moment. So if you enjoy this, please like, share, and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any episode, and it's free. This community is sponsored by humanity and supported by everyday people's story, just like mine on this episode. So please like us, join us, support us, and always, always be kind. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. Hope to see you next time. This is Slava, the Jordanian.